Hello everyone, welcome back to Monkey Media, and today we are going to be taking a look at Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, The Squeakquel, which is beloved by fans all across the world. Sorry, I couldn't say that sarcastically enough. In all seriousness though, this film has mixed reviews across the board, with some fans really liking it, and most fans really not liking it, and then there's me, who's in the middle and is indifferent. Although, I do have quite the critique for this film, so let's get into it. The film's opening is quite grand and just drops you into the film. However, if you were actually at this concert, you can barely see what's on top of that giant guitar. So, watching them live is kinda pointless unless you're sat in the first few rows, because who wants to watch them on that giant screen the whole time? I like the idea of one of the musicians actually dancing on top of another one, but doesn't Alvin kind of look out of place in this shot? Like he's not composited very well. But what bugs me the most is the fact that they're at a Chipmunks concert to see singing chipmunks, but they're not singing at this point. Though, despite the strange set design, like the upturned Alvin and the giant guitar, you can see the sparse difference between how Dave set up these concerts, presumably that he did set this up, and Ian's from the previous film. The fact that anyone would pay to go and watch a giant screen... Wait a minute. It's like a cinema, theatre, movies. It's like the movies. Although this does give us a look into pre-COVID-19 life. You wouldn't get anything like this now. I get that it's supposed to be showing that the Chipmunks are world famous, but an igloo with a giant screen TV? So to anyone watching who is an expert with electric guitars, could you guys tell me, is it possible for this to exist? A less than 4-inch guitar that is functional? So the Chipmunks look a little bit more refined in this one. Their fur looks more brushed and they look a little cleaner, and their stripes look a little less defined. But in a way, the previous film looked a little bit more realistic. But I suppose that in this film, they've had some experience, so they've cleaned up a little bit. Honestly, this could have happened in reality. The Chipmunks are drastically different in the way they are animated in this film compared to the last one. In the last film, they would scratch their ears, and they would sniff around and flinch and twitch. In this one, they're just kind of a little bit more human. Though, I really like the way that Alvin is actually gripping onto his guitar with his leg, or his foot. It's kind of cute. So, I guess Jason Lee just didn't want to be in this film too much, or he was busy. It has to be one of those excuses, right? They wouldn't deliberately do this to his character. I mean, it's not like Jason Lee doesn't want to be in the franchise, considering that he came back again and again and again and again to play Dave. I actually heard that he liked the role. It doesn't matter if they're sentient chipmunks, this would never happen in a billion years, letting animals into an operating room. Okay, just because they are chipmunks does not give any doctor a right to inject anything without anyone's consent into their butts. It could kill the chipmunk, and it's incredibly negligent. And Jackie will always be a legendary character within the Chipmunks. I mean, she's practically the only one in the entire film who can get good eye contact with the characters, and she has such brilliant chemistry with them. Though Zachary Levi is quite good at playing a very horrible person. It seems that Theodore actually managed to spell Dave right this time. To the right ears, this song that Alvin's singing sounds pretty good. However, the scene serves no purpose, other than perhaps calling back to the original film. Though, now that I think about it more, perhaps this is a setup for the later events in the film where Alvin starts to break away from the other two chipmunks. So the film is showing you how close they are at the moment. We all know someone like Toby, don't we? That game-addicted person who's always on online games, just constantly. So those cheese balls are about the equivalent size of an orange to them. There is no way they're eating the entire bag, and will probably just leave a mess. Spinning around on a food mixer isn't half as bad as some of the things that he'll get up to in the future. You can absolutely tell that Jason Lee filmed all of his scenes on the same day. It looks like the Chipmunks still don't have a bedroom, and they're sleeping in the same chair they did in the first one. So, when exactly are they going to get proper sleeping arrangements? I'm sorry, but you have to be really pathetic to fall asleep while playing an Xbox 360. It'll probably overheat anyway. Toby is a terrible father. I wonder if that'll be resolved by the end of the film and he becomes a better person. I do like the idea that Alvin's never got up in the morning that early to do anything in his life, even though he's a rock star and probably has done something like getting up early at some point in his life, but apparently not. Probably explains why they still sleep on a chair. So, his cat hates him. I wonder what for. I wonder what he did to it. But everyone watching this film kind of likes him because he's sort of the best thing about it. Apart from the Chipmunks acting and everything, that's actually pretty cool. But yes, Toby's kind of the best human actor in this entire film. I know you're supposed to suspend your disbelief with movies, but the idea of actual chipmunks going to a high school is preposterous, is ridiculous, and it should not have happened in the film franchise at all. But it did, and it was done for comedic reasons. Okay, Zachary Levi is good, but Wendy Malick also makes the film. She is brilliant in her role. I mean no offense to the actors at all when I say this, but they have to be the wimpiest looking jocks ever. So I'm completely unfamiliar with American schools. I mean, I know a little bit about them and the grade system and whatever, but do all the classrooms have blackboards at the front and the back? And do they actually still have blackboards, as in chalkboards? Really? Alvin immediately says hello to the girls in the classroom, and the classroom girls react to Alvin. Don't know why I said classroom girls, but completely strange. It's strange in the TV show, it's even stranger in the movies because they're actually chipmunk-sized, chipmunk-bodied chipmunks. It's weird. If they find them cute and adorable, that's one thing, but if they find them sexually attractive and want to give them the doomy eyes, then that's... Wait a minute. Judging by how the fandom reacts to them at some points, maybe it's not too far from the truth. Oh dear. And judging by this person's questionable swooning, maybe it's the latter. So the bully's motivation is that he's jealous of the chipmunk's fame in stealing his girls. Yes, that's great motivation. Fantastic writing. This building is used in so many other films. I think you can actually, it's on a movie lot somewhere in Hollywood. But anyway, Jet Records has changed buildings, in fact. But let's just sprinkle over that fact, shall we? I get that he had a contract and everything, and there was some controversy around it as well, but they could have gotten a better villain for this film. I get that it's a family movie, but, you know, I hate the fact that it brushes over the fact that other animals don't speak. Like that rat. Why doesn't it speak? Why doesn't it sing? Why can the chipmunks sing? So many questions in a review/analysis. There is a deleted scene explaining how the Chipettes got into the FedEx package and got into America itself and so on, but when it's removed, it kind of just looks like the Chipettes should have probably died in that FedEx package. I mean, it's sealed, there's no air holes. Yeah, it's funny that the first part of the Chipettes that you see is their crotches. Whatever, I guess. Jeanette lets out a woo, and the other two Chipettes are surprised that she did that. That is subtle character design.
Oh my gosh, they're naked!
Yes, we're going to get out of the way the obligatory reference to the fact that they're naked, or nude, or whatever. The Chipmunks in the first movie were also nude. Just because they're female doesn't give them any more need to be wearing clothes because they are chipmunks, and this is how I'd expect to see them first anyway, because like I said, in this movie they're actual chipmunks and they just come straight from the forest and they're just in their fur. There's no reason that they should be wearing clothes. Unless, of course, the story took a different direction as to they are already civilized, they were just with someone else, but no, that's not the case. So Brittany just glances over Jeanette and goes straight to Eleanor, and that's because she knows that Jeanette is shy. Also subtle character development. I should also point out that Olivia, which is one of the names that Jeanette references, is actually a callback to the original Chipettes, meaning that the owner that they used to have before they met the Chipmunks was called Olivia. A small town, population 300, and carry on. You know, I think it's a running gag in these films to not have any backstory. Putting all of their tales together like that is a nice touch. It really is. I remember watching this in the cinema for the first time and actually being mesmerized by the song in this scene. It was just so good. Whenever the Chipmunks or the Chipettes do anything that's to do with melisma and that sound effects with their voice, just creating the music and the song and the vocals by themselves is just brilliant, and I think that's just what they should do. I know that some people have criticized this scene for being a little bit sexual, but to be honest, if you see it that way, it's in your mind, not the film. The fact that the Chipmunks did actually turn on Ian Hawke when he actually did work hard to make them rock stars is true, from his point of view. The film paints the Chipettes as a little bit naive that they'd actually believe him, but Eleanor kinda looks like she doesn't. I don't know. Theodore and Simon feel incredibly threatened by this wimpy bully, but Alvin doesn't, which shows a very vulnerable side to Alvin because he probably should be. This is by far the shot appreciation shot because, wow. Just wow. The fact that a chipmunk is able to beat up two humans is just unbelievable. This should technically be classed as attempted murder, especially if the Chipmunks have civil rights. I mean, Simon says that he just saved him from drowning in a toilet. So yeah, attempted murder. I wonder what would happen if Simon died. Okay, I suppose the Chipmunks do have agility and size on their side. I mean, if you were attacked by a chipmunk like this with razor-sharp teeth and things like that, then yeah, you're gonna have problems.
Theodore, your butt looks fine.
Has to be the strangest line that any brother could say to any other brother. Yeah. Yes, it's a family movie, so they won't have blood all over them, but they totally should have blood all over them. You threatened to climb inside of him and build a nest is the best line in this entire film. Hands down. So, the principal here is a huge Chipmunk fan, which is nice. It's nice to have some representation in the movies. But it opens up a whole kind of questions. She says that she has all of their CDs, which means they must be making money off royalties, right? And she went to see them in a concert in Denver? Again, should have money from that. So why don't they have their own bedroom? Maybe there isn't that many rooms in that house. But whatever. Maybe they're saving for a new house, but they'll probably appear in one of the future movies. Oh wait, it does. Isn't that Chihuahua, the one from the movie? Opens even more questions. So the Chipettes were presumably living in a small town. So a small human town? They must have been, because that's the only way they could have possibly have seen a movie. Hey! I mean, they had to put a fat joke in there somewhere, right? I mean, it's not that she's fat really, it's just that she has wide hips. I mean, if you kind of pause it at the right moment, it sort of looks like Britney shouldn't really fit either. Her hips are too wide as well. But at least Ian's keeping great eye contact with her. Not. Even Christina Applegate, who voices Britney, said that Britney has a huge butt. So, there's that, I suppose. So they couldn't possibly have lived in a human town, because Eleanor makes a reference to it being the best treehouse ever, which means that they lived in treehouses. It seems to me that Toby is portrayed in such a way that he left high school, but his brain never did. Screenshots from the first movie framed as family photos in the second, and this isn't the last time that they do this meta sort of thing. It's really kind of strange. I really like the reference to the film Dodgeball, but the fact that the Chipmunks are playing dodgeball with humans just makes me want to kind of arrest the gym teacher, or dodgeball teacher, or whatever they're called in this reference. Yeah, because it's really, really bad. Yeah, not good at all. This shouldn't be happening. And the ridiculous concepts just keep on coming with this movie. The fact that they actually consider having a chipmunk on a American football team is even more ridiculous than dodgeball. I suppose it's no coincidence that Simon is playing chess with someone who is practically dressed the same way he is, right? Also, the set design here deserves praise because that Toys for Tots things keeps appearing every now and then and it's great continuity. It shows that the world around the Chipmunks is as active as the story that they're participating in. You might think that the Chipettes being female doesn't make any difference to them being sort of singing chipmunks, but actually it does, because they can sing in a very different way than the Chipmunks can. I've been doing this ever since this film came out, because it's just hilarious. Laundry is also a reference to the past of the Chipmunks, and this shows that the Chipmunks are slowly splitting apart. Perfect reveal to the Chipmunks. Perfect. Also kind of establishes that they are not brother and sister. Apparently everyone had a thing for Jeanette when they were younger in the 80s, even though I wasn't around in the 80s, but, you know, I can see why. You know how everyone has something called headcanon? Well, it's in my headcanon that the Chipettes got their clothes from dolls and adapted them. Because later on you see them using dolls' equipment, like little mirrors and things like that. So it's common sense that they probably got their clothes from dolls as well. I've also kind of got to say that I love Brittany's jacket. And why is she wearing a tie? Never really understood that. But besides that, I actually think that the Chipettes are more well-dressed than the Chipmunks are. You know, the first time I saw this scene, I actually thought the Chipmunks were in love with the person playing the piano. Not very clear. So I suppose that this school has no security. Once again, the Chipettes dance kinda seductively, and the angles don't help either. But, you know, it's still pretty well done. All credit to Ian. I mean, she did kind of make her decision based on bias. I am sort of fairly certain that the most applause doesn't really count as a voting system. They should literally have a voting system. If you didn't notice it before, what's going on the Meerkat Manor episode coincides with how the story is progressing. So, as the film actually showed, and as Alvin just referenced, they do have a bedroom. But for some reason they like to sleep on the sofa? Theodore on his own in the center of the shot, constrained by the door in the wall, kind of shows that he is alone and feeling isolated. This is probably the most food she's ever seen in her life. Yeah, I know. A lot of people take this shot out of context and think it's something else. But what I'm mentioning here is the fact that she reacts to the grapes being put in front of her before they're put in front of her. Yeah. Honestly though, I think Alvin should have at least grabbed Brittany or something like that to save her. But you know, whatever. There's clearly a cash register behind Alvin there, which means that they must have to pay for the food. So where exactly is Brittany and Alvin keeping money on their person? I mean, it could have been a lot worse. That sauce could have gone all over her. In fact, that would have been even more funny, to be honest. I'm not sure if Brittany sounds more like the original Brittany here, or just Ian. Ian doesn't even bother to learn their names, which goes a long way to him caring, and they don't even notice. All of that extra glitter that Alvin put on the card falls onto Dave. Good continuity. I find it hard to believe that Simon would fall for this trick, considering that you see this guy several times throughout the film sat with the bullies. Seriously, go back and check it. But when the cat's out of the bag, Simon's asking him, "You knew about this?" Well, technically, no, he didn't know about it. I guess this is why they don't wear shoes or pants, because it would be uncomfortable for them and they wouldn't be able to move, really. Though it does beg the question, where did she get shoes like this? I know that Eleanor's supposed to be crafty, so maybe she made them. Okay, I'm calling it. Maybe they just had this custom made. I mean, a helmet that small and an outfit that small, and why does he need the padding? He needs an entire body shield. I can just imagine being one of these extras watching this film and just be like, "Hey, that's me! I'm in a Chipmunk movie." But seriously, I would totally keep that Chipettes Rocks shirt, you know? You gotta feel sorry for anyone in the background of this, like way in the back of the stadium. Just like, Where are they? Where are they? You know, it's so small. The Chipettes are once again made to be a little bit more seductive than they probably should be. I mean, Brittany is wearing a chest top. It's a shirt that accentuates her chest and is a little bit out of place because, you know, she's a chipmunk and is, well, how can I put this nicely? Flat. That wasn't nicely. But with that said, they are all wearing similar sort of outfits anyway, so, you know, could be worse. They could be wearing belly tops, which also wouldn't make any sense. But of course, the Chipettes win and the Chipmunks concede, more accentuating the fact that the Chipmunks are splitting apart. Also, I have to point out that this is a fantastic, fantastic shot. The fact that Brittany is stood in the light, in the center of the shot, is just brilliant. Essentially a visual metaphor to say that the Chipettes are now in the spotlight, which is followed by another visual metaphor of Alvin standing center, isolated, and in the dark. Brilliant. So with Alvin having basically split up with his brothers and things, and they're mad at him, and he forgot about the concert and whatnot, there has to be some kind of joining back of the Chipmunks. They have to get back together somehow, and it's all kind of done pretty quickly and a little bit too fast if you ask me. And it's with this scene with the birds of prey, with the eagles, which has also been built up to. I really do like the fact that they used a real life bird, but you know, they could have easily have done it in CGI and have it talk, because why doesn't it talk? Questions. And Theodore gets stuck inside of the grate, which is mirroring what happened to Eleanor earlier in the film. Or maybe they just run out of jokes. I don't know. So, Simon says he speaks pachyderm, which, of course, is an elephant. But, you know, does that mean that all species speak a language? And they just learn English? Simon's apprehension is kind of warranted here, because Alvin doesn't deserve to be forgiven just like that. He needs to earn it, but of course he forces it because we don't have that much runtime left. Wow, old school YouTube is old school. Wow, look at that, the yellow subscribe button, the star ratings. I've been on YouTube for way too long. Wow. I'm amongst the originals. Wish I had a following like the originals. Like I said earlier, the Chipettes are using dolls equipment, so surely they must have doll outfits on. Also, I love the reflections underneath them. Brilliant. Although, while wearing a skirt, it's probably not a good idea, but we've seen them naked anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, Ian Hawke, this time around, has essentially threatened to kill and eat the Chipettes. Roast them alive, or dead, and eat them. Which makes me picture them sort of on a stick, and him eating them. They're just roasted corpse. Gross. Is that an iPhone 3? Wow, this film really has aged, hasn't it? I wonder what would have happened if the Chipettes drank some of that champagne that Ian Hawke is opening. Like, would they get drunk and act all loopy? Anyway, moving on. Exactly what would the Chipettes have done if Alvin wasn't there? Jump off the car? A Donald Trump reference in a Chipmunks film coming out of Brittany's mouth. Really dated. Oh dear. Such a beautiful voice. I actually do recommend that you follow his career. A pretty decent character arc for Jeanette. She actually managed to come out of her shell and save the day. Alvin, Brittany and Eleanor look kind of comfortable, but Jeanette, as a girl, probably isn't very comfortable right now. Well, I guess something like this had to happen eventually. But it's actually Brittany's reaction to this that makes the scene, because she's just like, huh, what does that, why does that hurt? Because of course, like I've just said, she is a female. But judging by Alvin's reaction, he really knows how that feels. This is probably the best moment in the entire film, to be honest. It's just, he comes out of his shell, he finally admits his love to the other character, I forget her name, and it's a nice, tender moment. And it's also his character arc, so it's brilliant. In just those brief seconds, you see the personalities of every chipmunk in one go. Seriously, watch the scene. So, the emotional, amazing scene at the end with the dancing and the singing of the Chipettes, brilliantly choreographed, brilliantly lit, brilliantly animated, fantastic everything about it, so I've run out of words. But there's no judging involved. They just win, you know? They just win. And it's not fair to the other schools at all. They just come out, it's clear we have a winner. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not fair. Not the most flattering moment for David Cross. I mean, I like him as an actor. He was great in other films, and he was absolutely brilliant in Men in Black. But, you know, this is not the highlight of his career, while also kind of being the highlight of his career. Despite what he might say about it, being in a Chipmunk movie, and despite what people might say about them, it is a highlight. Because the Chipmunks are an icon, like them or not. I suppose that the twist on this version of the Chipmunks is that the Chipettes actually live with them, rather than live separately like in every other rendition of the Chipettes. But I kind of like the idea of them living together. It kind of makes them like siblings, but they're not siblings. They are essentially lovers. But, you know, we won't go that far into their relationships. And one final note, this is a brilliant way of having the Chipmunks and the Chipettes be together. The sort of triple-decker bunk bed things, which were probably about as tall as, I don't know, a small child maybe. It's kind of unclear exactly how tall they are because you can see it's in relation to the size of the window. But it's good, and I like the set design as well. If you take a look around, you can see all sorts of things relating to the characters. So it isn't exactly, I wouldn't say it was recent. This is actually something that's probably happened after the fact. So, you know, this is not the first time they've slept in those beds. And I kind of like the idea that they're all in one room, like I've said. So they should have made a series, or made the series like this, rather than living in a treehouse next door. And with that, it brings us to the end of the movie, and almost to the end of the video. Overall, I think this film has a very weak plot. I mean, the Chipmunks should be rich enough to just afford $25,000 anyway. They should not be attending a school in the first place, and there is so many other ideas that could have been easily implemented for the second film instead. It is a very mediocre kind of plot, and the fact that they would do any of those things that they did, sort of the dodgeball and the sports, or even, you know, just walking through the halls unassisted, is ridiculous. But it does introduce to the film cinematic universe the Chipettes, which is a good thing. It just could have done it so much better. But it's a fun movie to watch, and, you know, if you're a Chipmunk fan, you're going to enjoy it. If you're not a Chipmunk fan, it's just going to be whatever, a shrug off, basically. So yes, that brings us to the final end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like it, leave it a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed already, please do so. We are welcome all new subscribers to this channel, and we have new content going up at least once every 2 weeks, something like that, because we're kind of busy over here, especially with this pandemic going on. So, until next time, I'll see you soon.